All right, have you ever wondered why the real estate market is so stinking unpredictable? Well, I'm going to give you the 4 phases that every real estate market goes through and explain why it is that it is that way. All right, here are the 4 phases of the current real estate market. But before I jump into that, if you haven't done so, take a minute, subscribe to our channel. We'd love for you to be a part of our ecosystem here, and we'd love to help you understand the market. Whether it's your home, you think about buying or selling, whatever it might be, help you understand a little bit better. So thanks for joining us in Ryan Real Estate. Let's jump right into it. All right, here are the 4 phases. First, you have the recovery phase, then you have the expansion phase, then you have the hyper supply phase, and then you have the recession phase. Let me break each one of these 4 down for you right now. Okay, let's jump into the recovery phase. How do you know if it's recovery phase? Here's how you know. It's when the market is starting to bounce back from a recent downturn. Even if it's a small downturn, if it's bouncing back from a downturn, this is what it is. How do you know if that is when interest rates start to lower, you see buyer demand start to increase, and you start seeing more activity on showings. This is a great time during this phase for buyers to jump into the market because there's less competition. If I had to guess the phase that we're currently in, I would say we're partly maybe in this phase, but I'll tell you the other one I think we could potentially be in as well. The second phase is the expansion phase. That just kind of piggybacks right off of the first phase. And what that is we start to see more buyers into the market, more demand. You see home prices start to increase, showings kind of go through the roof, and a lot of activity is happening in the market. This is actually a really good balance phase. It's good for both buyers and it's good for sellers. Lots of activity, buyers wanting to buy, sellers wanting to sell. The third phase is the hyper supply phase. That is when the market is overheated with extra amounts of supply. How do you tell the symptoms for that? Is that there's a lot of supply and that you see the days on market for homes to sell continue to rise and rise. This is also a hard time for sellers to maybe get the pricing they would have gotten in the previous phase. And because of that, in this phase for sellers, this is a time where you can still get a decent price in your home, but maybe not to what it was in the previous phase of the expansion phase. Advice to buyers is that there still might be some overpricing going with the sellers. So just be very careful during this phase. Again, this might be a phase that we are currently in, or the first phase. One of those two is kind of where we're at. And the last phase is the recessional phase. And during this, there's dried up activity all the way around. Sellers are having a hard time getting their home sold. Prices start to drop. Foreclosures start to rise. Typically, this is brought on, even if it's not an official recession, of a similar recessional period. Buyers during this phase is when you potentially could find some deals because there might be some sellers out there that absolutely need to sell, and this is where you can jump in and potentially get a good deal. Sellers during this phase, you might need to be a little bit more patient than usual. There are the 4 phases. All of them provide great opportunities and some possible negative consequences, but you need to understand which phase that you're in. Personally, I think we're in that 3rd phase of the hyper supply phase, although I wouldn't say we have hyper supply. In the current market here in Houston, that's where we're at. We'll see if we move to that next recessional phase or if I was wrong. Maybe we're not. A couple of things to think about is to figure out how do we know which phase we're going to. First thing is the interest rates. Obviously, when interest rates go up, it slows the market down. That's what they're trying to do when they do that. And when rates go down, it increases the amount of buyers into the market, and their goal is to get more involvement in the market. Second thing that can affect which phase you're in is the economic indicators. That could be how employment rates come out, GDP, inflational data, all of that stuff is a big effect on that. Third thing is the government policy. Certain policies and regulations that many people put in the market, many of our legislators put different policies and regulations that affect the market and can have a pretty strong effect in moving us from one phase to the other. And then lastly, it's local market conditions. For instance, here in Houston, we had a hurricane go through in July. That made a drastic effect on the current market. Homes couldn't be showed, sellers were needing to sell, buyers were a little little hesitant of what am I gonna do after a hurricane, and that stuff can have a gigantic effect on it. All in all is, hey, we're not locked into a phase forever. The market can always change, and it is, as I said, always unpredictable. But understanding what phase you're in can help how you as a buyer seller can have a better understanding of the market and help you to make great choices no matter which phase we're in. There you have it. If you have any questions, as always, let us know. Question for you, which phase do you actually think we're in? 1, 2, 3, or 4? We'll see you next time on Ryan and Real Estate.